I can hear something calling. It's calling me every day. If taking a chance is a crime, then I've got hell to pay. I've been walking the streets in my mind, trying to find a new day. Keep on searching until I will find, until I find a new way. I'm gonna say something, I hope you don't mind. It's time to rearrange. I walk round in circles, I'm going nowhere. It's time to make a change.
Al, welcome. How you doing today? Thanks for joining me.
Charles, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, same here, Al. It's really following you on social media, seeing your content, your website, really some interesting stuff for me, but I think more importantly, really valuable information and work that you're doing. And I think not just myself, selfishly, I know I'm going to get a lot out of it, but I think the audience will too. So with that being said, could you give a brief introduction of yourself?
Well, as I sit here right now, I'm 64. I started sort of a professional career as a musician. I've spent most of my life making music. I've spent a lot of time in athletics, as you probably know, as a runner and a triathlete. But my passion as I sit here right now is helping people to age better. I coach aging and aspiring adults to take back control of their health and live stronger in their second half and beat what I call the doctor dance. Charles, it really came out of something that happened when I was 25 years old, where I had this vision of living my entire life in good health. And then one day, like at the age of 110, just going to sleep and not waking up the next day. So this vision I had, the way I described it at that time, was to square the curve or to die healthy. And juxtapose that against what I think we see more of in this day and age, which is a slow, gradual decline of health with so many people. I often say that many die a slow death before their actual demise. When I was 25, I saw, my parents and the way that their health was declining and their friends. And so I just wanted something better for myself. And so I've spent my entire life learning what it would take to create good health. And about 2 years ago, I wrote a book called Age Well and Feel Great, The Proven Path to Solving the Aging Puzzle. I sat down one day and said, and just created sort of a mind map of what I wanted the book to look like. And I worked on an outline, and 3 months later, I had a rough draft done, 230,000 words. I did all the graphics myself, virtually everything with the book myself. I'm super proud of it. It's already, I think, impacted a lot of lives. But it was my opportunity to share what I've learned over a lifetime of personal experience and study and research, literally every single day. I'll just say this, Charles, and I think you get this, and I know your listeners do as well. In the end, without good health, nothing else matters nearly as much. It doesn't matter the amount of material possessions we have, the amount of money we have in the bank. Steve Jobs died at 56, worth roughly $7 billion. But he could never pay anybody to be sick for him. Unfortunately, pancreatic cancer took his life. So all of these things in our lives that we think of as being so important, right, and front of mind, whether it's building a business, our relationships, social gatherings, they all take a second sort of back seat to health when we get that diagnosis that literally can change our life. So I'm just trying to help people say that, see that this idea that good health is sort of the platform upon which everything else in life, which has meaning and purpose for each of us, is really what it's all about.
I'll tell you what, Al, you really kudos to you because you just got everyone's attention. So for anybody that was thinking about tuning out, I think they're going to stay in here, because what you just said there in the beginning of this podcast, I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important. And, it's so poignant what you say. And when you think about someone like Steve Jobs and that, I mean, it really puts things in perspective. So you talked a little bit, I think you start to touch on it, but curious, can you share what was the inspiration behind you just saying, hey, I'm going to dedicate myself to helping adults optimize their health as they age, helping them age well?
Well, I think it's a variety of factors. And Charles, I know you and your listeners can relate, but I think all of us, every one of us, has an experience where we knew somebody or know somebody or even someone close to us suffering from a chronic disease. And, God forbid it's some form of dementia like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or some cancer, right? Nearly 1,800 people a day die from cancer in the United States. It's closing the gap between it and heart disease, which is the number one killer. Incredibly, actually, when I think about it, because it's really been the case for more than 50 to 60 years now that heart disease and cardiovascular diseases remain the number one killer. But the bottom line is when we see and experience firsthand the suffering, not only for the individual person who's dealing with that disease, but also downstream to that, everybody around them. I often say to somebody, and I would ask you, Charles, like, what would you do if, because of an illness that you were dealing with, all of those people that you care about the most around you were negatively impacted? The last thing you want is to be a burden to someone else, especially the people that you love. But inevitably, that's what happens, whether we're talking about the functional decline that limits mobility, that creates more isolation, and as a sort of a byproduct to that, more sadness and more depression. We're seeing increasing rates of mental illness and emotional struggle in so many age groups, young and old alike. But I think these are byproducts of the effects of not only, again, functional decline, but the effects of chronic disease. As I sit here right now, I'm 64, as I mentioned, and I think the latest statistics I've read is that more than 94% of people 60 and older in the United States right now are taking at least 2 prescription medications, and very often 4 or 5. And these medications are designed to treat an individual symptom or ailment. And of course, each carries with it side effects. And these side effects end up manifesting as, in and of themselves, a problem or an issue that needs to be dealt with. I'm proud to say, and I know I've been blessed, but as I sit here right now, I've never taken a prescription drug other than antibiotics occasionally after some dental work. So I've been able to avoid, what is very typical for someone in my age. The average 60-something-year-old is taking some kind of a drug for hypertension, likely a statin for elevated LDL cholesterol. They may be taking an antidepressant. They may be on some form of diabetic medication. A whole host of things, which again have very serious side effects. So to answer your question, and I know this was a long-winded one, but again, it comes back to this simple idea that for whatever reason, Charles, I want to shake people and say, like, wake up. This is your health. Your health is your wealth. No amount of money matters if you're in pain or if you're suffering with a myriad of these side effects. And I think one thing that we all need to realize is that very often the diseases that are impacting our lives negatively and in many cases ruining our lives are insidious. They're hidden. And so one day they manifest as a symptom, and all of a sudden you're dealing with this diagnosis that literally can change your life. I think many of us are thinking, hey, it's our DNA, it's our genes, right? It's our family history. But the reality is the science tells us it's about 80% lifestyle, the choices we make, the food we eat, the exercise we get, our exposure to sunlight, the amount of artificial light that we're exposed to in this day and age, of course, the dangers of modern life, the toxins in our homes and in the environments we live in. All of these things are impacting our lives in myriad ways. So, yeah, it's the end of the day, my friend, it's really about my desire to just try to share what I've learned to help somebody extend the quality of their years.
Listen, as you were speaking, this is a lot of it hit home for me. I mean, just dealt with my father-in-law dealing with dementia, watched that tragically happened. I don't talk about it a lot. Watching now my father dealing with cancer. Even myself going back a few years when I was 100 pounds overweight and on heart medications, glad to say I'm not anymore. It all hits home, Al. It really does. And I feel like I'm fortunate because of people like you and others. I know it comes down to we're still responsible and we have to do the work, but I think, and I want you to know this because people like you are making a difference, because we hear so much negative and it's so easy to just go the other way and basically slowly decline. It helps when we have people like you spreading that positive message and just, shaking us, right? Shaking us to do the right thing. So I say thank you and kudos to you for that. So, yeah, that was a real good segment there, Al. It really, really hit home to me, and I'm sure it's going to hit home for a lot of others. So in your work, and you mentioned it a little bit, and I know even for me, Al, like I watched my grandparents. I think I said this to somebody the other day. When I was growing up, 65, 70, you would have been considered an old. I mean, I'm 52. I'm not much younger than you, but this day and age, growing up when I did, somebody your age, we looked at as you were old. You're an old guy, right? Even me now at 52, I'm a bit of an old guy. So what are some of these misconceptions that you've encountered about aging in the work that you do?
Well, it's a great question, Charles, because there's a number of ways to look at it. When I wrote my book, I wanted to make sure to discuss at least a little bit what I think of as aging stereotypes, and they can be viewed in a number of different ways. So, for example, I really dislike the phrase. I don't want to use the word hate because I think hate's strong, but I really dislike the phrase anti-aging. Because to me, that's sort of a phrase that connotates that we should glorify youthfulness in some way, shape, or form. And we know that there are, a myriad of products out there that are designed, to try to remove the wrinkles and, change the gray hair to brown again. And to me, this is the completely wrong way to think about the aging journey. So I really wanted to address that in my book. I believe we should embrace every chapter of our lives and literally be willing to turn the page, right? I think every chapter of our life can offer something valuable and positive, provided we're doing each chapter as well as we can. And I think that's the challenge. So to me, there's really nothing wrong with aging per se. It's just that we're not doing a very good job of it, right? And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about. My dad, and I'll, just reflect for a moment. My dad, at the age I am right now, was diagnosed with a glioblastoma, which is an insidious form of brain cancer, and was gone 10 months later. My grandfather, I have vivid memories of him in a convalescent home. And he was gone, I think, by 72 or 73, but literally for both my dad and my grandfather, they were very, very, very old men by the time that they had reached the age that I am right now. So one of the things that's really important to me is that through the way in which I live, I can demonstrate that it isn't about our genes strictly or our DNA, because if it was, then I would be much like they were. As I sit here today, I mean, I'm never going to run as fast as I did when I was 30. I can tell you that. but I feel stronger than I've ever been. Literally, I do think I'm stronger now than I've ever been. And I'm out running a few days a week, riding my bike, and I feel like I can do pretty much anything I want to do. And it isn't about me. What that's about is this idea that age, if we do the things that we need to do to honor our health, is just a number. And that's not to say that the aging process isn't going to happen. I know that as I get older, I'm going to have a few more wrinkles. I'm going to feel a little more stiffness. I'm going to feel a little bit more arthritic pain, certainly as the years go on. But as I sit here right now at 64, I don't have arthritis or arthritic pain. I don't feel it. I don't feel any limitations to what I would want to do. And to me, that's really exciting, because what it comes back to is this idea that we do have the responsibility, and we need to take it for ourselves and own that. And of course, in this day and age, man, that's hard, because the messages from the media and from everything that we see. I mean, if you turn on a TV, you're getting commercial after commercial after commercial for various medications and quick fixes to deal with symptoms. And of course, we're looking around us, and everyone we know is in pain or dealing with a chronic disease. We assume, oh, that's the way it is. That's normal. But I'm here to say I'm normal. The problem is normal's not common. That's the challenge. So yeah, aging can be a wonderful journey. And I don't want to sound Pollyanna or pie in the sky. I mean, listen, we all know there's going to be a day at some point in time. I know that at some point I'm going to very likely have a disease that may end up leading to the end of my life. What I'm trying to show people is that we can delay the onset of that disease, and hopefully right until the very end. I mean, listen, if I contract cancer at 110 and 3 weeks later I'm gone, I'm okay with that. I mean, all things being equal. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my mind, that's the way I think of it.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I'll share this with you. I reflect a little bit as you were saying that. I know when I started my own journey and the whole DNA, right? You hear it's in your DNA, accept it. And I actually said to somebody, I said, for me now, DNA means do not agree. I do not agree with that any longer. I can change certain things. And I think, again, what you're doing is really helping to shed a light on that. So I know you're an athlete. How's your personal journey, some things you've done, triathlons, things like that, how has that contributed to your approach to overall health and the aging process?
Well, that's a great question, Charles. And here's the way I would answer it. One of the things that I share with every audience I speak to, and I'll share a little bit today about it, is this idea that the human body thrives on physical stress. The sort of clinical word to describe it is hormesis, or hormetic stress. And it's this simple idea that what doesn't kill us, as Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Right. So, of course, there's a balance, right? When I was competing and training for the Ironman and trying to get to the Ironman World Championships, I knew full well that the amount of exercise I was doing in that moment in time was excessive, and probably not contributing to my long-term health. So we've got to find the balance between being sedentary and not moving at all, and not challenging our body physically at all, and of course the extremes. And there's a happy medium between the two. So the human body needs physical stress in order to stay strong. When we hear about things like cold water therapy, exposure to extreme environments, when we look at what a vaccine in theory is designed to do, which is to introduce a little bit of a threat to the human body, and then in theory the body adapts and becomes more resistant to that. So these are the mechanisms upon which, when we stress our body, it will adapt and become stronger. And of course, the challenge is, in this day and age, especially in the United States, we've fallen in love with comfort, right? We love it's cliche. We all laugh about it. We love the remote control, the garage door opener. I mean, we don't have to do anything, right? And when we reach retirement age, it's like, man, I can enjoy life now. I don't even know what that really means, right? Because you can't enjoy life if you're in pain, and you can't go out and do the things that you want to do, So the simple idea of the exercise or training that I've done for whatever athletic event I may be preparing for, the root of that was that I understood at a fundamental level that by introducing a stressor, my body would become stronger. And so as I sit here right now, Charles, I've completely changed how I approach my exercise from what I did when I was in my 30s, where I was just trying to run the fastest Boston Marathon that I could. That was my goal. And then in my 40s, it was about how many times I could get back to the Ironman World Championships and compete. But as I sit here now, it's predominantly strength training to make sure I maintain muscle mass and avoid the effects of much muscle wasting, or what's known as sarcopenia. Mm-hmm. Because when you lose muscle, everything else downstream gets worse, everything. So my primary goal is to maintain muscle, and secondarily, it's to maintain mobility, right? Just to be able to move freely. And then some cardiovascular exercise, because at the end of the day, the running and cycling that I do, where I raise my heart rate. And, Charles, I'll just finish by saying this, because I know a lot of your listeners, I'm going to guess here, or maybe this is reaching, I don't know, but I bet a lot of people are nodding their head going, yeah, I should do more cardio. I should do more aerobic exercise. I should do that. Yeah, but oh, that's not any fun. I mean, who wants to get out of breath? Like, no, I don't want to take the stairs. Why would I go up and down the stairs 10 different times when I just want to take the escalator? This is always a joke in the airport. Like, I'm the guy running for the stairs. 99.9% of everybody's on the escalator. I'm like, give me your suitcases. I'll carry them up the stairway myself. I'm not the average guy, right? But I think more people need to understand that if you can do just a little bit of this and a little bit of that, because it isn't about massive amounts. If you can get literally 10 minutes a day, 4 to 5 times a week of something that raises your heart rate, do jumping jacks, right? Do a set of very slow push-ups. Go ride your bike and just push the effort up a little bit and get your heart rate up just a little bit. You can get massive benefits from a really relatively small amount, of exercise. But the reality is, if you don't do it, you will lose it. The body deteriorates if it is not used. That's just the way we're wired.
Yeah, I think you talking there about I would agree with you, because as you were saying it, I know my mind, I hear about running and I start to hate it already. I know I have to do it, but I don't like it, right? It's just something we have to do. But I think you start to go into the mindset a little bit there, Al. And for those listening that may not be watching, trust me when I tell you this, Al does not even come close to looking like a mid-60s-year-old man. But I think even more than that, a bigger compliment I can give Al is just the vibrancy that he speaks with. And it just, your mindset, Al, comes off of you. Like, you're such a vibrant individual. And I think that's attributed a lot to your mindset too. So how does the mindset play in this whole aging process?
Well, it's everything, Charles, right? And, I got to laugh, because when we first got on this morning, I had this immediate image of you there in your office. And I had that, that image right there of that sign right next to you, and it says believe. And to me, belief is everything. And we all have our belief systems. We've been domesticated over the course of our life. Very often we believe that things, certain things are true because, after all, we're doing them or not doing them. That kind of reinforces that whole idea. But to your point, belief is everything. Mindset is everything. And I think for the average person, we don't believe that our choices matter enough to make change, and we don't want to change. I mean, I think this is part of our humanity. It's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed of. I just think it's how we're wired. Our brains one of our brain's jobs, I believe, is to protect us from the dangers of the unknown. We don't like the unknown. We could look at it in a very sort of an extreme way and say that I think many people might be living in abusive relationships and be unwilling to leave them simply because they're more afraid of the unknown associated with leaving an abusive relationship than with the known quantity, which is the relationship itself. And I think that, sort of expands out into how we think about our health and how we think about exercise. The fear of the unknown, right? The fear of making a change versus being where we are. And then reinforcing that with this idea that it doesn't matter. It's going to be what it's going to be. Life's too short, Al. Come on, get over it, right? Like, you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow or not. So do what you want to do today, man. Eat the cookie today because tomorrow could be over, right? You never know. And I think that's an opinion and a feeling that a lot of people have that comes back to this simple idea that they don't want to believe, they don't want the power of having the choice, right? To be able to at least give themselves the best opportunity. And I'll share a personal little anecdote as part of this. About 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I had a difficult conversation with my mom. And one of the things that was happening at the time was physically or functionally, she was completely falling apart and in a lot of pain, a lot of orthopedic problems, and really struggling. And I tried to help her, and she was very resistant to what I was trying to do. And and I know that family is the toughest nut to crack, right? And I asked Mom a point blank question, and I wrote about this actually in the epilogue of my book. I said, Mom, what would you do today differently if you knew you were going to live to be 100, but you weren't guaranteed of good health? What would you do today differently if you knew you were going to live to be 100, but you weren't guaranteed of good health? Because I think in our minds, we think, hey, life is short. We might as well do what we want. But the truth is, if we were to take a step back and go, well, what if I am going to live to be 100? Do I want to be in pain for 20 years from the time I'm 80 until I'm 100? Do I want to be on this medication for the rest of my life? I mean, it's a completely different way to think about it. And of course, I'm not saying that there are any guarantees, and I'm not saying that life isn't short. I mean, it's really just a blip, right? But the truth is, I think we really need to approach it with the mindset of, hey, I could be here for 100 years. I want 99 of those to be as good as they can be. I want to be able to I want to run around and be on the dance floor when one of my great grandchildren is getting married. Here's the other question I often ask, Charles. What if we could see our memories in advance? Would we do anything differently today? That's a question I've asked so many people, and I look them right in the eyes, and they look at me and they're scared. And you think about it, like, think ahead 20 years and imagine yourself lying alone in a convalescent home, surrounded by people really don't know you and don't really care. And all of the possessions you've had, they don't have any more meaning anymore. You're just there. And the only time you see somebody come in is when it's time for you to take your pills. Right? Now juxtapose that against the memory I just described. You're on the dance floor and you're dancing with your great granddaughter, and she's 21 and you're 105. And just think about the memories you're creating, right? Think about what she's able to learn about who you are and about your family and about everything that matters the most. Those are memories that I would argue are more meaningful than anything else, Charles.
Man, now I've never thought of it that way, honestly. I hear it, the life is short thing. I mean, I'm about odds too, right? I want to always give myself the best chance, but I don't think I ever specifically thought, like, you know what? Let me specifically say I'm going to make it to 100. How am I going to make that be the best it can? That's a really, really powerful way to think about it. And the whole memories really, really good stuff. Um,
I'll just say one more thing too, because you asked about mindset. In my book, I write and ask the question, what's your why? And I just described a why for me, right? And I think at the end of the day, we have reasons why we do what we do. So I implore people to consider these and consider a why. What is the reason that you might want to do this? What's driving you and driving your behaviors?
hmm. Yeah, it's definitely powerful, powerful stuff. And I'm really hoping a lot of people listening will take it to heart. Um, I wanted to ask you, definitely want to ask you about this before we were done here today, but your whole concept of beat aging, I think that's really intriguing. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of elaborate on what each letter means and how it impacts your whole philosophy on coaching.
Well, thank you. It's the word beat, of course, is a little bit of a play on words, reflecting my life as a drummer and a percussionist, as I mentioned, at our outset. I've been a musician for all of my life, and it's one of those things that's very close to me. But, when I thought about a coaching program or approach, I really wanted to create a system that reflected to me the things that were most important. And the word beat and what it really means, man, it just, when it came to me, I was so excited. So the word BEAT is an acronym for belief, encouragement, accountability, and taking action. So my work as a coach, Charles, really comes back to those first three letters. I want to help somebody believe that what they do matters, that their choices matter, and that they can believe that it's possible for them to live stronger in their second half, that they could actually, like, as I sit here right now, I want to make my 60s and 70s and 80s the best decades of my life. That's what I want. The second letter is encouragement. Like, we all need more encouragement. We need encouragement from ourselves. We need to pat ourselves on the back more for every positive choice that we make, every little thing that we can do to kind of turn the dial more in the direction we want it to be is worth a celebration. Maybe your listeners are laughing. Come on, Al, let's be real. But I'm telling you right now, all of us have this negative inner critic. All of us have this voice in our head that tells us we're not worthy, that we should just give up, that the bed is where we need to stay. Let's not even bother getting up. And we all have this battle that we're dealing with in one form or another. I think it's a part of our innate humanity. So to me, learning how to encourage yourself, learning how to pat yourself on the back, and then having somebody at your side, whether it's me or any other coach or partner or support system that encourages you and gives you sort of that impetus to just keep forging ahead. And then, of course, the third letter, which is A, which is accountability. Listen, we're human beings, right? If we're not accountable, I mean, it's almost silly to think about it, but why did your high school math teacher have you do homework, right? Why did he or she have you turn that homework in? Because otherwise you probably wouldn't have done it, right? It's that level of accountability that is essential for all of us. And as a coach, the person at the other end of, whether it's the camera or if I'm talking with them one-on-one, they know they're accountable to me and they're accountable to themselves. And when we have that level of accountability, along with the encouragement and the belief that what we do matters, to me, we can be unstoppable, right? That can be the impetus to take action. And that action doesn't need to be huge or massive. It can be little, tiny things. So yeah, that's what the program is all about. And then there are 5 pillars in it. The pillars are, of course, movement and food and reflection and rejuvenation and, of course, mindset. So to me, you'll get a kick out of this, Charles, and I don't know if you journal, but one of the most powerful aspects of this coaching that I do is asking people to begin to journal every day. It's the reflection piece. And I think it's so important because through just sitting down with a pencil or pen, not typing, right? Just writing down something that you're grateful for, something you did that day that was positive for your health, for your well-being, some kind of, action you're taking or some progress you've made or something that you can reflect on. It's been painful for some people because not everybody likes to do it, but I force them to do it. I make them copy it, scan it, send it to me. I need to see pictures of the journal. And every person, has said it's been an incredibly powerful process for them where they just feel like every aspect of their life is better now because they're able to really reflect on all the good that they have within their life and acknowledge it. And at the same time, hold themselves accountable. If they can look back at the end of the day and go, man, I really didn't do anything positive for myself today to write about. Man, that's a level of accountability we all need. So yeah, that's what it's about. I appreciate you asking.
So hearing about it, I think this is a great spot here. Then you mentioned about the doctor dance. So I want to maybe close with this. And you said it doesn't take a lot, maybe some small steps, right? What are some of the things maybe now we could give some tips that you could give for people, individuals that can minimize their reliance on medical interventions as they continue to age?
Well, it comes back first and foremost to moving and to the food we eat. In my book, and my background is exercise, but in my book, I say that I think nutrition probably has the greatest impact on our health. So I would simply say this, Charles, eat real food. Eat real food. I have the conversation often with people where I'll say, let's talk about sugar. And they're like, I don't eat that much sugar. And then I point out the pasta sauce or the Starbucks or the jelly they consume or, the salad dressings, and all of it has hidden sugar. We're addicted to sugar as a culture, as a society. It's crazy. And sugar is highly addictive. It's every bit as addictive as heroin or cocaine, believe it or not. So I'd say start with real food. If you can here's a simple goal for someone who's listening today. Take one food that you were going to eat today that in some form or another is processed, has got a longer label, comes in a box or a can or a jar. Take that one food or a bag and replace it with a real food. Just that one thing, and then be consistent with that change, right? So take that one thing, whatever it is, and get it out. And of course, the second thing is exercise, right? And I don't like the word exercise. Get outdoors. How about that? Charles, we have, as a society, we've been taught that we should be afraid of the sun. And it's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Because the spectrum of light from the sun is the source of life. We would not have life on planet Earth were it not for the sun. So the infrared, all the hidden rays within the spectrum, from red light, infrared to ultraviolet, all of it is critically important for our well-being. And conversely, the amount of artificial light in our lives has completely distorted our circadian rhythm, the natural rhythm of day and night. It's negatively impacted our sleep. So I would say, here's something simple. Just get outdoors in the morning and without sunglasses and without sunblock, and get sunlight into your eyeballs, right? And get some of that red light spectrum from early morning, set your circadian rhythm. And then conversely, at the end of the day, dim lights within your own home, minimize your exposure to artificial blue and green lights, from a cell phone, from a tablet, from a computer, and every other kind of technology. Doing that kind of reestablishes that circadian rhythm, will enhance the quality of your sleep, the amount of REM sleep you're getting, which in turn is going to help keep you looking better, feeling better. So those are some simple things, right? Really simple things, but in truth, it's about consistency, and it's about making a part of your routine.
Great advice. And I think it's practical advice too, which I think is even more important than being great advice, is that it's practical. So thank you for that. So Al, I want to end with this. The fact that you're talked about it being a musician. You mentioned about the doctor dance. You mentioned you want to maybe get to 110. So let's consider all things. You make it to 110. Now you're on that dance floor with your great granddaughter. What do you say to her to give her, what's that lasting memory going to be of Al, in case that's the last time you get to say anything to her?
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, that's a tough question. The first and last thing I'll always say is I love you. I love you more than you will ever know. What I think is incredibly powerful is, and this came to me now, but I think about it all the time, is loving ourselves, Charles, right? I always think that self-discipline is the sincerest form of self-love, right? The idea that we value ourselves enough, that we love ourselves enough to care for our health, to ensure that we aren't becoming a burden to those people, like that great granddaughter. I don't want her to come and visit me, for 10 years in a convalescent home, feel guilty every time she doesn't come. You know the feeling, right? All of us who have somebody who's convalescing, you feel guilty every day that you don't go there, and yet you have your life to live, the things that you're doing. We're all doing our things. So what I would say to her is that I love her very much. But what I hope is that she can see how I've lived my life, and that she learns that, a balance of self-love and love for others and compassion and empathy is really the best path to, I guess I'll say, happiness. We talk about that word all the time, but to me, it's a difficult thing to achieve if you're not feeling good, or if you're burdening others. So other than that, I'm not exactly sure what I probably say to her. I'm not a very good dancer, so I hope you be patient with me.
Al, that's awesome. Listen, this has been a pleasure for me. I think what I want to end and say this to you is that I think the way you're living your life is you're just a role model to all of us as we all age. And I think you're doing some great stuff. And I think you just come across as an extremely authentic individual that we can all learn from. And I hope that people listen to this and they really heed some of the great advice, the poignant information, and just more than anything, I just hope they look to you as an example, because I think you are a great example on what we need to strive for. So thank you for that, sir. I really appreciate that.
Well, you're being very kind. Thank you so much. I mean, happy to join you. And, at the very least, tell them to go out and grab a copy of the book, Age Well and Feel Great. They can get it on Amazon or at my website, theallyman.com. If they order it from me, I can be happy to sign it for them and send it off. Be forewarned, it's a large book. There are 30 pages of scientific references at the end, and a total 680 pages. So it's large, but it's really meant to be read modularly. So don't be intimidated or overwhelmed. You don't have to read it all in one day, and you don't have to do it all. But the size of the book really reflects that all of these things matter: movement, dental health, obviously nutrition, inflammation, our gut, microbiome, and of course, all of these other facets, many of which we've talked about today. But thank you again for your kind words. Honestly and truly, I'm just here doing what I believe, I was meant to do, which is to try to be the change in the world that I want to see. My friend, it really comes down to that.
Al, great way to close it. I couldn't have said it better myself. So everyone, please look for Al on social media, his website. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. Grab a copy of his book. As always, appreciate everyone's support and the fact that you tune in to listen to me, mainly listen to my amazing guests like Al. So thank you all for that. Al, thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This has been the Bare Essentials. Thanks for listening. And remember, never hibernate on your goals.